Welcome back to my channel. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you here. Every journey begins with an open heart, not with full pockets. Think about that for a moment. We live in a world that teaches us to measure success by what we can hold in our hands, by the size of our bank account, by the weight of the things we own. But when life truly tests us, when we find ourselves on the road with little more than hope to guide us, the things in our pockets will not carry us forward. It is the condition of the heart that makes the difference. It is the openness of the spirit, the willingness to step forward even when the path is uncertain, that allows us to keep moving. When we hear the story of the 7 poor travelers, we are not listening to a tale about poverty alone. We are listening to a lesson about courage and humility. These travelers had almost nothing to their name, yet they were rich in something far greater. They had the strength to trust in each step, and they carried hearts that were not closed off by fear or bitterness. That is what made their journey meaningful. You see, when a heart is open, it sees opportunities where others see only obstacles. It welcomes people instead of pushing them away. An open heart is not afraid to give, even when giving seems impossible. I want you to imagine yourself setting out on a long road, empty-handed, uncertain of what lies ahead. The temptation is to say, "I can't do this, I don't have enough, I don't have what it takes." But the truth is, if your heart is open, you are never empty. An open heart draws strength from faith, from love, from hope that tomorrow can be better than today. That kind of hope cannot be purchased in a marketplace or stored away in a pocket. It can only be cultivated within you, step by step, choice by choice. The world often tells us that we need more before we begin. More education, more wealth, more recognition, more assurance. But the greatest journeys in history have been taken by those who began with almost nothing except an open heart. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They didn't wait for a sign of certainty. They stepped out because they believed that where their feet would land, a way would be made. The 7 poor travelers remind us that life is not about how much we carry, but about how much we are willing to give of ourselves along the way. They remind us that kindness can break down barriers, that humility can open doors, and that compassion can change the course of someone else's journey. Their story whispers to us that we are never too small, too poor, or too weak to make a difference. What matters is whether our hearts are open enough to let goodness flow through us. There is a kind of poverty that goes far deeper than empty pockets. It is the poverty of a closed heart. A closed heart cannot see the needs of others. A closed heart clings to fear and refuses to trust. A closed heart looks at the road ahead and says, "It's too hard, it's too long, it's too heavy." But an open heart looks at the same road and says, "I will walk it, and I will not walk it alone." That is why the journey always begins with an open heart, because it is not money that gives you courage. It is not possessions that give you peace. It is not wealth that gives you purpose. All of those things can be taken away in a moment. But if your heart is open, nothing can truly rob you of the strength to rise, to keep moving, to keep believing that the end of the road will be worth the struggle. So when you think of the 7 poor travelers, don't only think of men who lacked coins in their pockets. Think of men who carried treasures the world could not see, treasures of hope, treasures of perseverance, treasures of faith in tomorrow. Their pockets may have been empty, but their hearts were full. And that is what made all the difference, and that is where every true journey must begin. True wealth is measured in kindness, not in coins. How easy it is for us to forget that truth in a world that praises fortune, applauds possessions, and sets value on what can be counted and displayed. But when you strip life down to its core, when you stand face to face with human need, when you walk through the valleys of loss and struggle, you begin to realize that money has its limits. Coins can buy a bed, but they cannot buy rest. Coins can buy food, but they cannot satisfy the hunger of a lonely heart. Coins can buy attention, but they cannot buy love. What lasts, what truly enriches, is not the weight of gold, but the weight of kindness. The 7 poor travelers had no purse filled with silver, no treasures to show, no abundance of wealth to lean upon. Yet in their poverty they carried something greater than all the riches of the world. They carried kindness. And with that kindness they left an imprint far deeper than any coin ever could. For money may open a door, but kindness opens a soul. Money may win a favor, but kindness wins a heart. Money may pass from hand to hand and be forgotten, but kindness echoes long after it is given. Think of the times in your own life when someone's simple kindness lifted you in your darkest hour. Perhaps it was just a smile when you felt unseen. Perhaps it was a hand stretched out when you thought you were alone. Perhaps it was a word of encouragement that came when you were ready to give up. Those moments had no price tag attached, yet they were more valuable than gold. That is the wealth we are called to give. That is the kind of wealth that never runs dry. The danger of this world is that it teaches us to guard what we have, to count it, to cling to it, and to believe that the more we possess, the richer we are. But true wealth cannot be hoarded. True wealth grows only when it is shared. A man can be surrounded by riches and still live in poverty of spirit. He can fill his barns with grain and still go hungry inside. He can gather all the coins of the world and still die without having touched a single life. But the one who gives kindness freely, the one who spends compassion generously, that is the one who will never lack. Kindness is a strange kind of currency. The more you give it away, the more you seem to have. It multiplies in the hearts it touches. It spreads beyond your reach, carried forward by those who receive it. A single act of kindness can ripple through generations, lighting fires of hope in places you will never see. That is why the 7 poor travelers were not truly poor. They carried in their hearts a wealth this world could not measure, and because they gave it, their story still speaks today. When we stand at the end of our journey, no one will ask how many coins we saved. No one will weigh our lives on the scales of money. What will be remembered is the kindness we gave. What will echo are the lives we touched. What will shine brightest are not the riches we held in our hands, but the treasures we placed in the hearts of others. So let us measure our lives not by what we have, but by what we give. Let us see wealth not in the coins we carry, but in the kindness we show. For in the end, kindness is the only wealth that cannot be stolen, cannot be lost, and cannot be destroyed. That is why true wealth is always measured in kindness, not in coins. A traveler may be poor in belongings, but rich in hope. There is something powerful in that truth, something we must not overlook. Life has a way of stripping us of what we think we need: money, possessions, recognition, security. But if a man still carries hope, he is never truly empty. Hope is not a coin you can spend, not a garment you can wear, not a house you can live in. Yet it is stronger than all those things combined. Hope fuels the weary feet of the traveler. Hope steadies the heart when the road is long and uncertain. Hope whispers in the darkness that the sun will rise again. The 7 poor travelers knew what it meant to walk with little in their hands but much in their hearts. They were not carried forward by riches, by comforts, or by ease. They were carried by hope. Hope that tomorrow would bring better than today. Hope that a door would open where there seemed to be only walls. Hope that their journey had meaning beyond the hardships they endured. That kind of hope is wealth the world cannot measure, yet it is wealth that sustains the soul. Some may look at a traveler with worn clothes, tired shoes, and an empty pack, and call him poor. But if he carries hope, he has more than the richest man who has lost it. For a rich man without hope is already bankrupt in spirit. He may sit surrounded by treasures, yet he is crushed beneath despair. But the poor traveler, walking lightly on the road, believing in tomorrow, carries inside him a treasure that cannot be bought or sold. Think for a moment of the power of hope in your own life. Have you not faced days when you thought the burden was too heavy, when you wondered if you could take even one more step, and yet something inside of you, something you could not see or hold, urged you to go on? That was hope. It is the voice that will not let you give up, the spark that refuses to die out, the strength that rises when all else has failed. Hope is not naive. Hope does not close its eyes to struggle. Hope sees the hardship, feels the weight, acknowledges the pain, but still believes there is more beyond it. That is why a traveler with hope can endure what others cannot. He knows that the road may be long, but it is leading somewhere. He knows the night may be dark, but dawn is coming. He knows the storm may rage, but the skies will clear. We live in a world that tries to take hope away. It tries to convince us that unless we have more, unless we hold more, unless we achieve more, we are empty. But the truth is, you can lose it all and still stand strong if you have hope, and you can gain it all and still fall apart if you have lost it. That is why the poor traveler, rich in hope, is richer than kings. The 7 poor travelers may not have walked with gold in their pockets, but they walked with light in their eyes. That light was hope. It gave them courage to face the unknown. It gave them strength to endure the hunger, the cold, the rejection. It gave them faith that the end of the road would be worth the struggle of the journey. And because they had hope, their poverty could not define them. Their belongings may have been few, but their hearts were overflowing with what mattered most. If there is one thing worth carrying on your own journey, it is hope. Not possessions that fade, not treasures that can be lost, not riches that time will take away. Carry hope. Hold it close. Let it be the song in your heart, the fire in your soul, the strength in your step. For even when the road is long and the way is hard, hope will make you rich beyond measure, and that is why a traveler may be poor in belongings but rich in hope. When we share what little we have, we gain more than we give. That truth may seem backwards to a world that measures gain by how much we can hold on to, by how much we can save, by how much we can keep for ourselves. But life has a way of teaching us that the real treasure is not in what we cling to, but in what we release. The hand that holds too tightly cannot receive anything new, but the hand that opens, even with only a little to give, finds itself filled again and again. The 7 poor travelers knew this better than most. They had so little that the world might have passed them by without a second glance, yet when they shared even out of their need, they discovered a richness the world cannot measure. You see, sharing is not about the size of the gift, it is about the spirit of the heart. A crust of bread offered with kindness can outweigh a feast hoarded in fear. A word of encouragement given in love can lift a soul more than gold ever could. It is not the portion, it is the posture. Not the amount, but the attitude. Think of the widow who gave her 2 small coins, all she had, and yet it was counted greater than the gifts of the wealthy. Why? Because her gift carried her heart with it. That is what happens when we share what little we have. The world may see the smallness of the gift, but heaven sees the greatness of the sacrifice, and in that act of giving, something remarkable happens. We are filled with more than we let go of. We gain peace, we gain joy, we gain a sense of purpose that no possession can ever match. There is a law written into the fabric of life. Selfishness shrinks the soul, but generosity enlarges it. When we hoard, we may think we are preserving what we have, But in truth, we are growing poorer inside. Our hearts become smaller, our vision becomes dimmer, and our lives become emptier. But when we give even a little, the opposite happens. Our hearts expand, our vision clears, and our lives become fuller. In lifting someone else, we find ourselves lifted. In brightening another's path, our own becomes brighter. The poor travelers remind us that sharing is not just about possessions. It is about time, about kindness, about love, about hope. You may not have wealth to give, but you can give a listening ear. You may not have great influence, but you can give a word of comfort. You may not have abundance, but you can share the little you hold. And in doing so, you will discover that your small act multiplies in ways you never imagined. A seed of kindness planted in someone else's life often grows into a harvest you may never see, but it will change the world just the same. Many people fear that if they give, they will be left with nothing. But the truth is, the one who gives never walks away empty, for giving fills the heart in a way that nothing else can. It teaches us that we are part of something greater than ourselves. It reminds us that life is not measured in what we keep, but in what we pour out. The richest people are not always those who have the most, but those who give the most from the least. Think of how different this world would be if each one of us shared even a little of what we have. If we chose compassion over indifference, generosity over selfishness, kindness over coldness, the weight of suffering would be lighter, the burden of loneliness would be smaller, the brightness of hope would shine greater. And in that world, no one would be truly poor, because we would all be rich in what matters most. That is the great secret of life. When we share, we discover that we gain far more than we give. And that is why when we share what little we have, we gain more than we give. Struggles are not signs of weakness, but pathways to strength. That truth may sound strange to those who are weighed down by the heaviness of trials, to those who wonder why life has been so hard, why the road has been so rough, why the nights seem so long. When we are in the middle of a storm, it is easy to believe that our struggles mean we have failed, that our burdens mean we are not strong enough, that our hardships mean we are less than others. But that is not the truth. Struggles are not evidence of weakness. They are the very soil in which strength is born. The 7 poor travelers could have looked at their poverty and said, "We are nothing, we have nothing, we will never rise." But instead, their struggles gave them a deeper endurance, a richer compassion, and a stronger faith than they could have ever found in comfort. Poverty did not crush them, it refined them. Hardship did not erase them, it shaped them. Their very struggles became their pathway to strength, and because of that, their story still speaks to us today. Strength is never built in the easy places. No one becomes strong by sitting in comfort, by walking roads that never bend, by sailing seas that are always calm. Strength is built when the wind howls against you, when the climb feels too steep, when the burden feels too heavy. It is in those moments when you think you cannot go on, but you take one more step anyway, that strength is formed. And when you look back, you realize that what you thought would break you actually made you unshakable. Think about your own life. Think about the struggles that nearly brought you to your knees. Maybe it was the loss of someone you loved. Maybe it was the weight of failure, or the sting of rejection, or the loneliness that made you feel forgotten. In the moment, you may have wondered if you would survive it, yet here you are. You walked through it. You carried the weight, and though it hurt, though it cut deep, you came out different. You came out stronger. That is the miracle of struggle. It forges in us a strength that ease could never give. The danger is that we mistake struggle for weakness. We see tears and think they mean defeat. We see weariness and think it means failure. But tears do not mean defeat. They mean you care deeply. Weariness does not mean failure. It means you have carried something heavy for a long time and still kept going. Those things are not marks of weakness, they are marks of endurance. They are signs that you are in the process of becoming stronger than you ever imagined. The world may admire outward displays of strength, the kind that looks unshaken, unbothered, untouched by pain. But real strength is not the absence of struggle. It is the courage to keep going in the midst of it. It is not found in those who never fall, but in those who rise again and again after every fall. It is not in the untested, but in the tested who refuse to give up. That is the kind of strength struggles create. And when you walk that pathway, you begin to understand others more deeply. You see their struggles and feel their pain because you have known your own. Your compassion grows, your patience deepens, and your faith expands. Struggle has a way of softening the heart even as it strengthens the spirit, and that combination, strength with compassion, is what truly changes lives. The 7 poor travelers show us that our struggles are not meant to shame us. They are meant to shape us. They are not proof that we are weak, but proof that we are being refined into something greater. And when we look back on the hardest roads, we will see that they were not dead ends at all, but stepping stones that led us to where we needed to be. So do not despise the struggle. Do not think of it as failure. Do not let it convince you that you are weak, because the truth is, every struggle you endure is carving into you a strength you cannot yet see. And that is why struggles are not signs of weakness, but pathways to strength. The greatest story is not what we read, but how it changes us inside. You can open a book, you can listen to a tale, you can sit and hear words flow like water, but unless those words reach your heart and stir something deep within you, they remain only sounds and ink on a page. Stories were never meant to be ornaments for the mind alone. They were meant to be seeds planted in the soul, seeds that grow into courage, compassion, and faith. The true power of a story is not in the telling, but in the transforming. The 7 poor travelers remind us of this. Their story is not grand in the sense the world often defines grand. There are no palaces, no riches, no crowns or victories. Instead, their story is about struggle, humility, kindness, and hope. And yet it endures. Why? Because it speaks to something in us. It reminds us that even in poverty there can be richness of spirit. Even in hardship there can be dignity. Even in the simplest acts there can be greatness. That is the kind of story that lingers in the heart long after the words are gone. Think about the stories that have shaped your life. They may not be the ones with the loudest characters or the brightest colors. Often they are the quiet ones, the story of someone's sacrifice, the account of an act of mercy, the tale of endurance against impossible odds. When you hear those stories, something inside you shifts. You begin to see the world differently. You begin to see yourself differently. That is what makes a story great. Not its size, not its fame, but its ability to leave you changed. We live in a time where stories are everywhere. They flash across screens, they fill our feeds, they echo in every corner of the world. But not all stories have power. Many entertain, but few transform. Many capture attention, but few capture the heart. The stories worth holding on to are the ones that press on your spirit and whisper, you can be better, you can rise higher, you can love deeper. Those are the stories that do not let you walk away the same. The greatest story is one that calls you to action. It does not leave you as a passive listener. It stirs you to step out, to change, to give, to forgive, to endure. That is why the story of the 7 poor travelers still matters. It is not about reading a tale from the past. It is about what that tale awakens in us today. Their poverty calls us to gratitude. Their endurance calls us to perseverance. Their kindness calls us to generosity. Their hope calls us to faith. The story lives not on the page, but in the lives it inspires. And here lies the challenge for each of us. What do we do with the stories we hear? Do we treat them as passing entertainment, or do we let them shape us? Do we allow them to challenge our selfishness, our indifference, our fear? Or do we close our hearts and move on unchanged? The answer makes all the difference, because the greatest story is not just the one we hear, but the one we live out after the hearing. There is a reason stories have endured since the beginning of time. They carry truth in a way facts cannot. They slip past our defenses and speak to the soul. They remind us that we are part of something larger, something greater, something eternal. And when we open ourselves to them, when we let them move us, they leave a mark no power on earth can erase. The story of the 7 poor travelers is not just words from another time. It is a mirror reflecting who we are and who we can become. If it stirs you to kindness, if it teaches you gratitude, if it fills you with hope, then it has done its greatest work. Because the greatest story is not what we read, but how it changes us inside. Thank you for joining me on this journey of hope, kindness, and strength. Remember, true wealth is not in coins, but in the love we share. Let every struggle guide you, and let every story change you inside. If these words touched your heart, share them with someone who needs it today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories, and keep walking with an open heart.